Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 84th episode of the HSBG Podcast. I'm your host, Educatedcollins. I'm here with my constant co-host, Shady Bunny. Shady, wait for it. How you doing?
Oh, there's the drop. I'm doing well, Collins. Thank you for asking. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Generally, well, I guess I would say. I don't know. Is that a weird answer? That's not the answer I normally give. I'm like,
Doing good generally sounds okay.
no. Normally, I'm doing okay, which is a level below good, or so you know. So this
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, seriously. So, kind of interesting. I don't normally say, "I'm great. Fantastic." That's you probably never hear that from me.
Pushing it. Yeah.
But good is pretty. It's
It's like
pretty up
I want,
there.
I want the lobby legends. Yeah, doing all right, I guess.
Yeah, that might be a fantastic. Yeah,
That might be a
yeah,
fantastic.
that might
Yeah.
be a yeah. But,
Setting the bar there.
yeah. But other than that, you're not getting that. But yeah, overall, I'm doing pretty good. You want to get straight into it? I don't know. Like usually say we have a
It's been a while.
jam-packed episode for you, but I don't really feel that. Like.
Well, I think it's good to also say so we missed a week.
Oh yeah,
But it's
yeah. Okay, so last week wasn't here. I was not at home at the time of the podcast scheduling. So I was actually away during that time. Unfortunately for all of y'all, so we didn't schedule like a new date for it, which sometimes we do. Like, oh, if we're missing a day, like we'll schedule it. But came back home. I was tired. Didn't really follow up on Shady, that kind of thing. So I ended up just missing it. But today, this week we're back on track. Hopefully, so. Sorry about that one, but it's
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's the worst thing either, just because there is
not
this is
much.
really the chill time, right? Where the game is the game, and then if you like playing it, great. If you're a bit burnt out, then there's not much changing.
I
So
forgot to add that topic.
with-
The lull of the holiday season.
right,
I
right.
forgot to add that topic. Maybe we'll just cover it blindly. But yeah, we don't have like a particular topic. But we can get started on the topics that we do have. Pretty much it's mostly like the new things that are happening have pretty much been tournaments. We do have the Pocky. Well, we do have the weekly overview actually. That's right. That's right. However, I've not been playing too much PGs. I think I have to play like a couple games, like 2 games this week, which isn't much at all. So I haven't really been playing BGs. Been playing other games. Marvel Snap's been a main one. Also, Genshin Impact has its new TCG, which is actually not as bad as I thought it would have been. Um, I wasn't expecting much, but it's actually not that bad.
It's a game. It's actually a game.
Yeah. However, like I do think the meta is solvable. That would be my biggest criteria.
Right.
Where I think like after like 2 months or so, if nothing changes, it don't balance stuff, you'll know what the strongest decks are, with the and what's like unplayable in competitive environment. Like that'd be my one gripe with it, where it's like there's not enough variety, where there'll probably be like 3 or so viable decks, and then like
Well, it's not really the main purpose of the game, so it's more like a side thing.
Yeah. They're not. I don't think they're going to be putting like the resources in to like maintain over like years or anything like that. So, but day one, it's good. But I always look through and see like how's the feature hold up, and there's some cracks in that. So it's fun for now, but like definitely it's gonna fall off if nothing changes. They could do stuff, but yeah, blah blah blah. That's been my week.
Yeah, my week's been pretty chill as well. Just been liking the game, playing, but feeling well. I'm pushing on my Europe accounts. If not, I'm kind of just chilling on an A.
Mhm.
I had them parked right next to each other, but several bumped in between, so that was rude. So
How dare he?
I know. Now I have to play one of the accounts and fix that.
That's been my new thing, by the way. I've been saying how dare, whatever.
How dare they?
How dare they?
Yeah, like it's because there's less interest by top players, of course. But I got Twitch chat rank 15 and my main account rank 13, so that's been pretty fun. And it's not been. I haven't even been pushing like super hard because there's been a ton of games on an A where I don't know where I'm at on an A, but it's like
Have you noticed a difference in the gameplay with less like really high
Mm.
leaderboard players playing or anything?
So I do sort of dodge really high level players because I've got a shit ton on my friend list, right? So by
Ah.
default, I try not. So I do queue into Shuva Lord quite some time just because we play at the same time, and I
Right,
don't I'm not gonna like sit there the whole time like dodging, right?
right.
So I do try a little bit, but yeah. So I actually play at the same time as the Russians do because I play early, right? And
Mhm.
they're a bit further ahead in the time zone. So like Terrorblade, Shuva Lords, those I play. But yeah, I also play early, so that for me also changes it a bit. Where I probably play some higher ranked players, but a lot of them, right? It's not like I'm gonna be playing RDU or so because he starts later in the day.
Okay.
JJ's also in the morning, so I do run into him from time to time. But yeah, essentially to answer your question, the level overall is. I wouldn't say it's like massive drop, but it does feel slightly lower. But I mean, XQN played to defend his rank one. Babo is
Yeah, but
playing the whole
you're not in
time.
those games, you know. So
Yeah,
does that
exactly,
matter?
exactly. Well, I mean, I'm comparing my experience to how it usually is, right? And I
Right,
always play at that time.
right.
So for me, I guess there's not a drastic shift.
Okay,
I guess would
that's
be
what I
the
was
like,
asking. I want your
yeah.
experience. You know.
Okay, yeah. It's just because I played that early, but I'm still getting lobbies where I'm gaining like 70 for a first sometimes. So that's overall good, right? I
Right.
think
Yeah,
if
that
you're
is good
getting
too.
Yeah, if you're getting lobbies where it's in the 50s, that's when you're starting to think like, "Oh, there's a lot of lower ranked players that I'm playing against right now." I think once like if you're hovering between 60, 70 points, those are fine lobbies.
Mhm.
So yeah, overall, I guess not a drastic shift in experience for
Okay,
me.
that's all I wanted to hear.
You got
All right, thank you, thank you. All right,
it.
first things first. We've got some tournaments to cover. Pocky had a recent tournament. A lot of great players in there. You know, both for Hoppa, XDG, Lee, RDU, Seville, and Victor. Do I call him Sun Bacon? I just call him Victor, guys. You know, because I know him. You know, we tight like that. Whatever. But, but yeah, ended up. So spoilers if you haven't watched it. It was a good tournament to watch, but spoilers. Jeef did take it, uh, cleaning it out, but it was a pretty close competition there, and pretty always. It's always nice to have these tournaments, right? There's definitely been less of these like big community tournaments since a lot of the space has been taken up by Lobby Legends, right? Because Lobby Legends does
Yeah,
take a lot of it covers a lot. Like you have the qualifiers, right? And if you're in there, then you're like, I'm not playing in the other tournaments. And then you have the actual tournament. If you're there, like, you know, they're every month, right? So they do cover a lot. So a lot of these community tournaments that used to pop up before, right? You're not seeing as much of them. For whatever reason, but since there's no Lobby Legends this month, like, hey, we still got tournaments. Some
yeah.
people want to cover. Punky's been really good at that, so definitely a fine tournament to take a look at if you're interested in that kind of thing. And speaking of top tournaments that Pocky's in, casting, there's another one actually going on. I think like right now or like around this time, where it's the WCG Rivals tournaments.
Oh, the was that? I've seen that one earlier today.
Okay,
So
yeah,
I'm not sure if there's like multiple rounds, but I saw the Korea Japan one, so I'm not sure if it
it
has
might
multiple.
already have passed then. You know, it's
Right.
today. That's what I don't know what
Okay.
time.
Well, that was definitely that one then. So if
Okay,
that's one round, if that's just a South Korea Japan
right.
game, then yeah, I watched that one. So that one happened. But
Okay,
that was cool. Yeah, it was Nina and Pocky casting
yeah,
for
Nina
the
Pocky
for the
casting. Yeah,
broadcast.
exactly. Yeah. Well, then you know the winners then.
I will say that it was on my I was like second monitor watching, I was just
Okay.
like enjoying it. I was not super I did see some really cool plays because they it's a team format, right?
Oh,
So
it's a team format. Okay,
yes,
yeah. Okay.
for the final round where I don't even 100% know the rules. So yeah, awful, right?
That's
Not a
fine. That's fine.
professional. But it seemed to come down to sort of a check format thing where, like either one of the teams just needed a winner, right? So they just needed to produce a winner.
Okay.
So they picked tests and they fed the tests so
So
hard. They
hard.
like
Yeah.
they gave her like 2 hoggers and a toady. And then someone else gave her a Void Lord to proc it and stuff. It was so hilarious to watch. And then even at the very end, when there was like 4 people left, right? So the Tess is about to kill someone. So that would be 3 left. Now the Tess's teammate is on like 40 health. Now what happens is I believe that Matsuri is the challenger, sort of, who isn't on the team of the Tess. Like, so what the team of the Tess does, right? That's South Korea, right? So South Korea sacrifices the Illidan, who was on like 38 health, just made him concede so that they would force the final straight away. So Matsuri didn't have time to like, fight man queens and shit. So the Illidan just conceded just to force the final straight away. And then, the test was too big and they killed Matsuri and it was over.
Wait,
so
that's
that was
so troll. I get it, no, but yeah.
Yeah, that's some insane. But that's what happens when you're just like, okay, you just need to produce a winner. It doesn't matter, right? You just produce the winner. That's it. Doesn't matter who's third. Doesn't matter who's fourth. Just produce a winner. So it was like, all right, you concede now, so it's finals immediately. So I get to kill this guy. Don't give him time to do any shenanigans. Which was because the test was ready, man. The test had like so much stuff ready to go. So she was like, all right, I'm good for finals. Just give me Matsuri right now so I can kill him. Yeah, that's what happens. So that was a very, very cool
spoilers,
ending to
by
that.
the way.
Yeah, of course. I think when that was honestly that was very, very long-minded. So if you haven't turned the cast off by now to be like, oh, I don't want to hear what happened, then that's on you. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah. Anyways, so that was very cool. So that definitely made me want to play a team tournament
format, right? Yeah.
I've played
the Global Invitational was team format, right? And
then you guys couldn't see who was who, right?
No. Yeah, you couldn't see who was who, but it still was it was still a team format in essence, and like
sure, but you guys wouldn't be able to do that.
No, we wouldn't be able to do that. But it still felt good to be like, oh, I had a bad game. Oh, my teammate just carried this round. That feeling of like, oh, like teammates are just carrying, and it's not. And there's some games you carry yourself, right? Like it alleviates a lot of that, like that pressure of like, oh, solo game, 1 versus 8, I'm dying, I've lost the game. You always feel like, oh, no, the teammates can carry. Oh, it's fine, the teammates can carry. Oh, it's my turn to carry. Let's go, like so.
The teammates will carry Copium.
Yeah, I know, but like it happened for me.
You go out 8th in the first round. It's okay. The teammates will carry Copium.
That did happen to me a couple of times in there. And it is nice because it's a lot more freeing, and it also is like an overall arching of like the whole team skill, right? Where, if you're playing multiple days, right? Like one day you'll have a bad day or whatever, right? But over the course of like multiple days, you really do get to see the better team. I would say so. I like it.
Yep, for sure. And there's just a larger range of possibilities where if you have 2 underwhelming games, let's say you're playing a Lobby Legends qualifier, it's only 3 rounds, you've got 2 underwhelming games, you're kind of out of it, right? Where you're already with your back against the wall. It's like, all right, this has to be a first, and then my 2 other competitors need to get like 8th and 7th, and then maybe I'll go through. Whereas in the team format, that's a lot of it is like, well, okay, we'll see how the team does, right? There's a lot of stuff that can still happen. So for sure.
Yeah, being able to see the teammates is definitely it's almost a different beast, or like a different game mode, right? Where then you have all this like team coordination synergy.
It's a different game. Yeah. You start positioning in a way to try and force a tie, to save health versus teammates. In a way where, if you're playing Reform or Tess, you can really just, okay, I'm playing Reform, let me just put my brand first. You don't play a unit that has more than whatever power, right? Just put something weak first so you don't accidentally kill something, and then have a taunt that kills my brand 100%. There you go. You get my brand. Stuff like that, and that's cool, right? Being able to do that. So that definitely opens up more possibilities for those thief heroes to really, you can actually feed your teammate.
I remember them asking, "Oh, what game mode would we like to add a Hearthstone?" Oh, it's like Team BGs, add dual BGs. Like, gosh, I played it in TFT. It was too good.
That was so good. Yeah. So for anyone who missed that time where Collins and I played some TFT, I'm sure we talked about it in those episodes.
There was an episode.
Yeah, TFT has a dual
Duel.
mode where normally it's 8 players, same as in BGs, but now it's instead of 8 players, 4 teams of 2 players, and you can pass each other units and stuff, and that's so much fun. Imagine in BGs where it'd be like, "Oh, I rolled a Baron. All right, give me the Baron, give me the Baron. Oh, I need a Baron. Oh, here's a Baron." Like that would be so good. Where within reason, of course, you don't want to go complete craziness. And in TFT, there's like 3 units per game you can pass and all that.
Right.
So you can do something similar, but that would be hilarious and so much fun because it really tests that synergy and it is a different game. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be so much fun to do.
Yeah. You're making me like, oh, that is why haven't we done that again?
I haven't even done that. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
lot. You do have to
It's a
learn
lot of
a
work.
lot. Yeah, you have to learn a lot to play TFTs. That's
Oh, you mean why? Okay, I thought you were saying, oh, why haven't we implemented that in BGs yet? I
why
thought that was
haven't we? It is also a
right.
lot of work. The same answer
Yeah, that
works.
is a lot of work. Yeah, we can play TFT, right? Just hit me up, man. This is the perfect time.
It is the perfect time. I agree.
We're now playing for qualifications.
Yeah.
I'm definitely chilling a bit more, so we can absolutely do some duo TFTs. All right, turning off the podcast. Let's play some TFT. See you guys.
Anyways, it's a
Next
cool
one.
tournament,
Yeah.
WCG. Definitely take a look at it if you can. And definitely a lot of great players. I believe 3 of them are Lobby Legends winners in the tournament.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's so stacked.
Well, I mean, we can say for sure.
Mhm.
I think Yanase as well. And then who was the last one? Was it Rimgosu?
I think it was
I'm not
Rimgosu,
sure.
right?
Yeah, either way, these are all like just household. Well, not all of them, but most of them are household names.
Yeah.
Where I
You
think
should know them.
Yeah, look, some I don't think I know. I know the entire Japan team. I know Rimgosu. I know Porsche, but I guess Pusa and Luxem I don't know. But I mean, that's still incredibly impressive. Where a lot of the Asia players, I have no idea who they are, but these guys are just so good that it's hard to get around them. Right? Yeah.
No.
If you watch Lobby Legends, you're gonna get familiar with those names.
Very, very true. All right. Next topic we do have is about that needs to be fixed. Enhanced Somatic. Is it still problematic, Shady? Or did the nerf no so initially
all right. Yeah, no, wait. Let me hold back on my judgment. I'll let you formulate
thank you. Initially the card came out, we thought, hey, this could be problematic. It's kind of good. Then we watched Day One Lobby Legends, or at least I did. And I was like, this is crazy. What is this? But then Day 2 they changed something, which, by the way, I don't think it's like a great idea to like change. To make a patch mid tournament. Like, from Day 1 to Day 2.
No, I don't think it was Day 1, Day 2, right? Wasn't it changed right before? I think it was changed before. I mean, we can check the date, right? But
okay, if that's better, but that's still weird, right? Like Diablo's God the day before a tournament.
No. This was just your classic. Oh, the quest is now more difficult to get, and it's more rare. That was your classic.
I guess a hot fix isn't as bad, right? Because it's not a fundamental change. Okay,
if it was like a quest where like, oh, we just
we're removing we're removing cookbook.
We're removing quests, right?
Right
no
before
I hope you guys remember how to triple into 6 drops because
it's a new buddy medic. We're bringing buddies back, like,
and they're all different.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, you're right. Hot fixes are fine. I guess that's true. But they did change it either the day before or the day of, and they made it harder to get. I did think the first day, I thought the first day it was very easy. I think it was between Day 1, Day 2 where the hotfix came in.
It's possible. Let me look at some.
And then I was like, oh, they solved it. Here we go. It's now harder. We don't even know what that means, like from a technical point. Where what is harder to, like, they don't like sharing that type of information where it's like these are the numbers of like what that means, right? I guess most players I guess wouldn't care, but for like competitive players that's invaluable information. However, but it was harder to difficult, and I did see less of it in the tournament. following that change, right? So I guess like Blizzard's like pack it up, we're done. We don't see it in the tournament as much anymore. Whoop de doo. But for all the people playing on in ranked and stuff where it's less rigorous, because the tournament format, like if things get harder to do, it is actually very impactful because you don't have as much time as in regular games where there's less of like that punish whether you miss a turn or not. Like being a turn behind in tournament is like very punishing. Where you could be like 2 turns behind in ladder, and you're still fine some days or some games. So um, take it from the expert here who isn't playing. I haven't been playing as much. How's this feel? Is it fine? Is it good? What's your judgment?
I picked it like 2 or 3 times in the last 2 days, where if it's being offered and it's not suicide, I'll grab it.
So
So,
what does that mean? That's very vague. It's good. It's
oh,
balanced, is what I'm
it's
hearing.
good. Yeah, no, I mean it's a broken quest still because so this is
Okay.
a so this is an important. Yeah, you go ahead first.
So from your first response makes it sound like it's in a great spot. Don't change it. Nothing is everything is fine. Like
Oh
I
no, I
picked it
mean
two three times and it was fine. Like that sounds like
well,
it's a good fine.
that's
Good.
because it's more rare,
It's
right? So
rare. Okay.
was maybe offered 4 times, and I picked it 3 out of 4 times, right? Maybe like one time I was like, "Oh, I can't make this, right? So
Okay.
let's say it was offered 4 times, I picked it 3 out of the 4, probably won those games because it's pretty broken.
So it's rare, but it's still problematic, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and this is just a thing that happens a lot where if you make a quest harder to earn, if you make it more rare,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna reduce the suffering essentially, but it's still gonna it's kind of like stolen gold when like right now stolen gold doesn't feel as oppressive just because white main's a thing because it
right.
really
Yeah, it
hurts,
really
right?
hurts. Yeah.
Because you know where the baron's gonna be.
It
Like you just slam white main,
you'd
like
you'd
I
you'd say
gotcha.
hammer is the better variant.
Yeah, I like
Dude,
hammer a lot
I've
more.
started saying variants now in conversation because of Snap.
Oh, right, yeah. But yeah, it's
Uh,
good. Hammer's great. So Hammer is
okay.
one of those. I hope I can complete it, and if I
Right.
can, I'm
Then
gonna have a
then
great
you
game.
yeah.
So yes, stolen. The reason why I say stolen gold is because it has a similar history where it was complete batshit
Mm-hmm.
crazy. It was dominating every game, made harder to earn, made harder to earn, made
Yeah.
harder to earn, and then eventually it said, okay, let's just make it more rare as well. And
But
right now,
they did that by replace. They also replaced it though, right? That was when they added the golden hammer. The same time they made it harder to see.
sure, but that doesn't take away that
Sure.
stolen gold was still a thing.
Okay.
And the reason why I don't think we complain as much about it is that we have white main. So
Mm-hmm.
now, if your opponent does go leaper, you can very easily say, "Well, you better roll 2 more barons because you're gonna have to move that bad boy." I'm gonna put my white main in the back, and then you either are gonna not have a golden baron, or I'm gonna taunt it and kill it. So that has really shut it down. Same with Exodia, pirates, Exodia, mechs. You just put a white main where they're gonna have their golden minion, and then you just destroy them. But that's not the case with this quest. So
Mm-hmm.
this quest hasn't really suffered that fatal blow. So you still fight someone with Reborn Leroy. That is still bullshit. It's not like, oh, let me just deploy the anti-Reborn Leroy card. Right?
What
Because
would be an anti-reborn Leroy
well,
card? I
it's
guess
something with
beast,
like
right?
blasters and Baron, but it's sorry, say again.
Like beast. I was thinking beast, right? Where they just keep summoning
Yeah.
things.
If you happen to be like a full tempo beast build, but then again, it's not like they have to play that, right? It's
Right.
still like I had this game earlier today where I my board was almost nothing. I was
Mm-hmm.
just setting up,
Mm-hmm.
but I had a reborn Leroy and it killed my opponent's 2 biggest minions, so I killed them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They had like a big Gosa and a big like taunted whelp and stuff, and my Leroy was like kill both. So it's so incredibly bullshit. I guess the problem I have with it is that we very clearly saw Reborn Max not being so dumb, and
Mm-hmm.
then now suddenly this is a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so is it better now that it's more rare and harder to earn? Yeah. Is it still bullshit when you come across it? Yeah, also. It's just less lower frequency of bullshit.
Okay.
So
It's not like there's not like one every game, is what you're saying.
No, I wouldn't say that on average you see it every game.
Okay.
And well, here's also another thing that people can also fail with this quest and they
Yeah.
can not roll a Leroy and all that.
Mhm.
So maybe from a numbers point of view, it's still
It's
like it's balanced here,
balanced. I
right? They
see.
might look at that, but that's the point I wanted to bring up is that whether something is balanced or not, it doesn't only rely on the numbers. It's also like, okay, did this quest like is that just a really feel bad moment
So,
where
so you also want
you
to include player experience in the.
yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. It's what I bring up with Lich all the time, where
Hmm.
you might get Lich to a point where she's balanced. We might be at that point, but if you routinely ruin the game of 2 out of your 7
7
opponents,
opponents. Yeah.
then that's not good. Even though the numbers might tell you, hey, you're doing a great job. This Lich hero, not OP. But it's like, yeah, I mean, something doesn't have to be OP in terms of win rate for it to be bad for your game, and I think this is one of those
And
cards.
that's where I bring up leader. No, I'm kidding. This is a Marvel
We snap
snapshot.
now. We snap. I heard a lot about that card, but I've never even seen it. I don't know what it does, and
It
I
uh,
don't.
it copies whatever you play, and it has extra power.
Sure,
So, so you play something, they play it as well, and then the card itself has power. So
but
you,
it's better.
yeah.
Okay,
So it's just better. It's what
so
you
I'll do
do,
what
but
you
it's
do.
a
But
little bit better. Yeah.
that sounds
Anyways,
annoying.
it sucks to lose too. Yeah, for sure.
No.
But moving on from that, so enhancement mechanic kind of problematic. When you see it, you just don't see it as much, but when you do see it, it is kind of a big deal. Next, we will talk about Murlocs? Question mark. Now go off.
Take it
Shady
away,
was
Carl.
like, Shady was
Yeah,
like, give me Murlocs, and I'll go off. And I was like, all right, here you go.
we can just talk about it. Yeah. So this is just a very common thing to come up in my stream
Mhm,
and a complaint in general, right? People
mhm.
go like, "Oh, game is Murloc, game is Murloc," and the the issue I think that there is with Murlocs isn't necessarily the poison; it's how easily they can build very healthy minions and
Yeah,
then poison them.
poison. Oh, and then poison. So poison is still part of it. Okay. You were gonna say it's not
Well,
the
I mean,
poison. I'd be
if
like, well,
if you were to make a 20-100, that's not very threatening.
I mean,
Right.
that is kind of threatening, right? Like,
Well, not in, we're talking late game
oh,
builds,
late
right?
game. Okay, yeah,
You're going into like turn 14, 15,
14.
and
Okay, yeah,
yeah, so someone has like this big wildfire, you're like, okay, well, you deal 20 damage to my 80 health wildfire, I don't care. But if that 100 health Murloc now also
has
kills
poison.
anything it
Yeah,
touches.
yeah.
But I don't really want to emphasize too much on the aspect of poison because I
Poison.
think that
Okay,
that's still good. I
right.
just don't think that you should be able to give your poison minions 100 health
100
very
health
easily
very easily.
because this is the problem is that it's so incredibly consistent right now. Like if you are playing Flurg, if you're playing Arana, or if you just have a good honcho start, you
Hmm.
can very easily force having a lot of health on your Murlocs, and that then protects you versus a lot of your natural counters. So we talk about the no beast, no mech lobby, and like, oh yeah, well that's going to be poison heavy. But I've started doing it in beast and mech lobbies as well, and I'll just like fuck it, I'll just play honchos and I'll just get big enough that I don't care if you have a rat pack, I don't care if you have deflectos, I'll just run a blaster for your deflectos. So I've started being more bold in that regard and just being like, fuck it doesn't matter, I'll just go honcho and I'll just
So,
have some health that it
so
doesn't
we
matter.
used to say, okay, Murlocs, you do it in no beast, no mechs because they counter you.
Yeah,
Now you're saying Murlocs, just do it. It's
you can
all
hard yeah
hard
you
force
can
it.
just you can punch through the counter, right? Somebody might have a reborn coiler and it's like, my guys have enough health, I don't give a shit about your reborn coiler. And that's where it starts to become problematic, right? Like
Yeah,
when you have the counter for poison ready, like textbook, you're like ready, you have your shit, and then they still beat you because their shit has so much health. And we're talking about very normal Murloc games here, by the way, because there was always that outlier, the person that got the golden brand, the mask, the
right,
Murkai, and you're
right,
like, all right, whatever, right? They get huge, but that's kind of like a golden Nomi high roller, and they get
right,
huge, and that's just how it is. But you can get like 80 health Murlocs without even ever seeing a brand. Like
right.
you just get two golden honchos, which I do all the time, right? If as long as you start off with like two honchos and then you push gradually into your second honcho on the board, right? You've tripled your first one, then you pick the second one. Then at some point you hold the extra copy in your hand until that triples. You got 2 golden honchos, you cycle Tads, you play your Seers, you get to like 80 health or so. And a lot of the time, that is just enough to beat your counters. And then you have poison to beat the stat players. So it does feel oppressive, but it's for a different reason that most people say it is. Like that's where I disagree, where I beat small health poison boards all the time myself, right? Especially in those beast mech lobbies. But it's the ease with which they accumulate health, where they can survive the mid game, and then suddenly they beat your counters because you have a lot of health as well. And then it's just very annoying for players that had a great game, but then because Murlocs were in, like they go up against 5 poison units, and a lot of the time it's just really hard to just have everything sorted where you're like, okay, I've played Theodar, I have my 3 big minions, and then I also have the Selfless, the Baron, and like 2 queens. Like I have those like 7 good minions, right? And that's what Murlocs force you to do. If you have like one bad minion versus a Murloc board, that's it, right? Because they'll just have the Selfless, the Baron, and they have all their shields and their poison, and they have huge minions. So you can't have a weak link. And it's so easy for them to create 5 chonkers because you just toxfin all of them, and all of them also have a lot of health due to the honcho, so they don't have a weak link. And that's probably the thing that's most annoying, where it's so consistent right now.
So okay, that's a lot of information.
Yeah.
In terms of like what's facilitating this issue that you're talking about, where they get the stats so quickly, would you primarily say this is a honcho centric problem, or would you say this is more like intrinsic to like how Murlocs play, in that like you're getting a lot of free cards over and over, and then they're giving you health, and so you just end up big? Or would you say like if you took out honcho or replaced it with like a weaker variation, it would kind of fix that issue intrinsically or something?
Yeah, so I think this is a thing. Well, I don't know, right? Like I just have my theories on how I feel like it would go. So my theory is that it's similar to what we talked about, where you pull the honcho out, you lose a shit ton of consistency.
Okay.
So you would have a much harder time, if not some games impossible, to just hard force. Because I feel like the honcho is what makes it possible to hard force, like especially if you're a Rana, especially if you're Floric, you
So
can just
are
hard
you
force.
saying if you don't roll a hunter early, you wouldn't like force Murlocs, or like does it not matter? Like
Yeah,
if you get
yeah,
if you get
exactly. So
okay.
yeah, so if I was playing Flurg or Rana, I would force regardless of what I'm rolling because I
Alright.
know I'll hit it.
Okay.
But if I'm not playing those heroes and I don't see honcho, I would probably just be like, well, I'll just go with the flow. And then if I roll into like Bran and stuff later, I can still do it the old fashioned way.
Mm.
But the issue that honcho creates is that it's just a 2-drop.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to get, and sometimes you just see it on your I had this game a couple days ago where it's like 5 gold and my shop is like a Tad and honcho. I'm like, here we go, right? So it's like anytime I hit that, it's like, all right, we're Murlocs because
Yeah.
it's so strong, it's so consistent. And what I wanted to say is that it's a similar issue where, yeah, if you remove the honcho, the consistency is going to drop, it's going to be less common, but you still sort of have that class identity problem where you do still have this type, this minion type that is extremely good at generating health and then also has poison. So I think it would be a good first step to say, let's either nerf honcho or not have honcho in the game and see if that's, because here's the thing,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people don't even do this right now.
Yes, Shady,
And
you're a
yeah,
good player. I hear you. That's
no, I'm saying like it's more just understanding how stupid it is, right? So there's a few units, like Peggy is another one of those units where I absolutely love Peggy,
it's
but
not that
if you
good, Chad.
no, if you compare Peggy to almost any other 4-drop, you'd be like, well, this is like
Yes,
nowhere near as good as
okay. I
Peggy, nowhere
heard
near as
you
good.
saying.
Yeah, just do that. Like some cards are just way better than the other shit you can find on that tavern tier.
Right.
Like Peggy is one of those cards. Like it's insane. You can build your whole game around a Peggy if you have like a evil twin quest or whatever. But regardless, right? This is about Murlocs. But Honcho is another one of those cards where you're like, this is clearly just a way better 2-drop in terms
Always
of
putting in
potential.
that Peggy propaganda anytime you
Yes,
can.
yes. I mean, there's Deflectabot's another one, right? Like that's just a way better 3-drop in terms of potential than a lot of other 3-drops, if not any 3-drop.
Sure.
So there's just certain cards in this mode that are just way better than the other cards, and that's fine because you can't make every card as good as every card in every step of the
I
game.
agree with you. Not every
no,
card
but-
has to be playable, and it brings us back to leader.
right. Anyways.
Yeah, but continue.
Anyways, the point there is that I think that this would probably be a much bigger problem if a lot of people realize, like, oh, I have a honcho I can just force now.
I
Like,
do
that
I
is-
do agree if the meta was just full of 15k players, it would be so frustrating. Such a toxic meta. If just like every opponent was like 15k, I'm just gonna use the broken mechanics that I've learned over the course of the years. I'm like, poison again. Oh my god! Every time like, they always do it.
Yes, I'm going honcho. Yeah, like that's the meme on my stream. Like, I haven't played honcho. Honcho not that good, but okay, I guess. Right? Yeah. So
you always do that. You find something and you're just like, I'm gonna hammer this until everyone's doing it.
I had that with ARM. That was so good. That was fun. Regardless, that's essentially my take on it. My take on it right now is that I feel like it could be a lot worse than it is right now, just because the vast majority of the player base doesn't just be like, oh well, honcho, let's force, baby. They're looking more at I need Bran. Right, and then if I don't have Bran, I can't play Murlocs. And understanding that no, it's not about the Bran, it's about the honcho. And the honcho is a true drop. It's way easier to get than Bran. So
it used to be the case that you kind of did need Bran.
Honcho was in the card, right?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people like have their strategies and like it doesn't like change over time or it has like, okay, this is Murlocs, you hit Bran and then bam, you're strong. With the lookouts and everything, and they haven't thought of like, do I need Bran? Oh, what about honcho? Honcho's really good. What if I just go honcho and scale off that? Right? They haven't like adjusted their core philosophies of like how to play a class. They have like this one strategy, and they stick to that, which I wouldn't blame for that. I think that's like a good way of like understanding the game on a fundamental level, right? But like when you want to like get to that higher tier of like skill expression, right, then you kind of need to reevaluate like how does a composition work, what makes it important, what makes it strong, and then like if you become like, oh, honcho's really why I win most of my Murloc games, then you reassess and be like, oh, maybe that's the core card, not the brand. I can win games without the brand, but when I don't have honcho, it's a lot harder. That kind of.
That's absolutely. Go ahead.
That's like a long-winded like reevaluating of like like that whole thought process should take you like a month or something to go through like that thing. I've just did it in like 2 minutes just to kind of see like this is how like players kind of like change their play styles or like come to new conclusions. This is that kind of train of thought, but like usually it takes a lot longer than that. Just spilled out here.
You watch someone else do it a lot of the time, right? That's how it happens, where you can watch a great player do something and like, I didn't think of that, and then you just start building off that, and then
that's a different learning strategy. It's more like you copy and then you understand through copying, where it's like, I'll just do what he does because it looked cool, it worked, and then like as you're doing it, you're like, oh, that's why he did that. Oh, that's why it works. So then it becomes like part of like, I understand how to do it.
I think you can understand for the most part while you
watch. Yeah. But I think sometimes you have to play a composition out to like kind of understand like, oh, that's like, why didn't he do this instead of that? Like, oh, this is what I would normally do, but he did something weird. Let me copy it.
The nuances you have to learn by doing it for sure. I was just talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you can copy like a strat, like but like that's not the same as like understanding how it works, right?
Yeah, well, I think we have a difference of just definition there. With I think understanding how it works fundamentally, like the broad picture, I don't think that requires you to play it too much. But the cool thing is that when you learn a strategy, you're like, okay, but what do I do if X minion type is in or out? What do I do if I triple into this early? What if I do if I'm taking a lot of damage early? What if I do if I've been handed, X, Y, Z? And that's how you really get into a strategy where once you have all those questions answered, like, oh, I've seen this before. If I get the triple here, I take a 3-drop. If I do this, I gotta go to that. If I get this quest on this particular strategy, then I do that. And once you have all those questions answered, that's where you truly understand the strategy. So I agree with you there. I was just talking more about understanding the core philosophy
You could
behind.
copy to a first place is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
understanding that you have to play Honchos to then play Murlocs to then increase the stats. That's not rocket science, right? It's like you don't have to play the game yourself too much to be like, oh, so these playing Honchos to get a lot of health on the
But
Murlocs.
what if you don't get two
Got it.
honchos, Shady?
Yeah. But those are all the contingencies. Yeah. Those are all the contingencies. So yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll have Arana games where I'm not rolling on 2. I just have like a really, really strong start, and I'll just start playing it on tier 4.
Yeah.
So that I'm rolling the Honchos, but I'm also rolling the Tox and Primal.
Okay. Usually when people are copying strategies, what they'll end up saying is, "Yeah, this strategy is good, but it's not consistent." You know what I mean?
Exactly. Because I'm only doing the same thing and I'm not adapting to the situation. So anytime I get a bad situation, it doesn't work.
It just doesn't work. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean. Like, once you start, understanding a strategy, then you can adapt to like those unexpected situations, and then I would say like you get it, that kind of thing.
You make it your own. Yeah.
Sure. Fair enough.
I agree with that.
All right. Next thing we've got. What do I have here? What is this? How to play Menagerie. That's right. You did ask about this. Someone on Reddit apparently, your comment got into this podcast apparently. So
yeah, no, I thought it was a good question because Menagerie is this pretty vague concept of I'll just put a lot of different types together and make it work.
I've given you hints. I put some cards in there
yes, the brand cards to then use the Menagerie Jug card on the cleave. I see, and the ball of minions. Excellent.
But how would you go about describing how to play Menagerie?
It's a tough one. I think to really explain it. So I think the first thing to say is that a lot of it is going to depend on what's going to make you stronger. So you're going to have similar games where you just have different units on the board. So this is something that drives me nuts, where someone might have like this 20/20 droplet, because that happens sometimes. You tripled, you played a Light Fang, you have a mask, it's popping off, and then they'll sell it for a 4/1 cycle.
And they're not playing Vol'jin. I know, right? It's crazy.
Right, yeah. They'll just like, let me just sell this 20/20 to play a 4/1, right? And be like, and that's correct. It's like, no, that is like, no.
Now if it was a 12/12, that's when you rip off the Band-Aid,
Well, even that, because here's my take on it. Okay. So when you're playing Menagerie, and let's say you are like old school, you're playing a Light Fang. You have to realize that Light Fang is not your comp. You're not going to be going into like turn 13 and be like, all right, Light Fang on the
unless
board.
You have Mask Quest.
Yeah, you get a golden Light Fang with Mask. Go for it. Keep that Light Fang until you die. Well, I mean, preferably one turn before you die, and then
preferably you never die.
Preferably you never die. Preferably you're 40 health, and it doesn't matter. But anyway, so assuming it's a normal situation where you got a Light Fang early and you got like 4 types or so, then what you're doing is you're using that tempo of the Menagerie setup to move into something better. So a lot of the time, what is better, I'd say Theo is probably your high-end Menagerie.
Yeah, like if you are swapping that 12/12 into like a 6/6 or a 4/1 Divine Shield, that means like you're planning to triple to a Theo. That's otherwise what are you doing? Like you're wasting your time.
Yeah. But the way how I look at that as well is there's just so much good shit on higher tiers
that you don't have to force Theo, right? So like, what's the point? I see what you're saying.
It's the Queen and Leroy were such a key addition to the game, where just understanding that you just need good enough units to carry you through the mid game, and then late game you can usually get to a point where you have 2-3 killer units and you just fill in the blanks with Selfless, Leroy, Queen. So that 20/20 droplet, that tempo loss of changing it to a 4/1 Cyclone, that is then going to but that's going to make it more likely that you take damage. That's going to make it more likely that you can't level. So then you won't be finding the Theo, you won't be finding the Queen, you won't get the brand or whatever to transition. Because if Murlocs are in, a lot of the time you're just playing Menagerie until you can switch more into Murlocs, where
Uh-huh.
you just have some poison ball of minions. Another big thing is, excuse me, do you have access to Murlocs and mechs? Because that opens up some real tier 4 shenanigans where you can build 2 perfect ball of minions on tier 4. So I've had games like on Edwin where I stayed on tier 4 almost the entire game and like won quite convincingly because I just made this like huge deflectobot, had Menagerie Mayhem Quest or so, and then 2 perfect ball of minions. And that's dangerous. That's annoying to deal with, where you have massive deflecto and then just a poison ball of minions. And that's technically also Menagerie, where you're throwing in a bunch of types. It's just amalgams. So I'd say the main thing with Menagerie is understanding that you just want to make the play that makes you strongest so that you can level and upgrade your board later. Don't take the huge tempo loss to make the perfect AFK board, because let's say you do get to, I have a Hydra, I have a Cyclone, and I've got my, 2 or 3 other types. Let's say they're all cleaves or divine shield, right? You get the elemental cleave, you get the beast cleave, you get the bronze
I
warden and
like
all
that
that.
though.
Yeah, that's so if that is handed to you on the way up,
Okay.
great.
Okay. Sure.
But if that means that you're staying 1 or 2 extra turns on tier 4, you are taking your pay cut in terms of stats. Where like, I got to get rid of this fairly large elemental or dragon because I need to switch it into a 2-in-1 bronze warder to then start scaling. That hypothetical perfect lineup isn't going to win, because you're still only scaling off a Light Fang. You're just not going to get there. Or let's say you're
But
playing
Light
random.
Fang is the best card in the game. This guy is living in the past.
That's a long, yeah. We used to, Light Fang used to be the nuts. Tripling the Light Fang was
yeah,
second place minimum. Nice.
yeah.
So yeah, that was good shit. But yeah, so Light Fang's still a fine tempo too, right? Like if you think about it, it's a renewable jug. So that is good to have on your board, but you're not going to take a jug into the late game, right? It's like, okay, if I have Snicker Snack and a jug on my board, that's
I
essentially
win, right?
yeah, you don't do that. Be like,
that's what Light Fang
yeah,
players do, right? They have
problem
Snicker
solved.
Snack and a jug on their board, and they're like, "I've won. It's over."
Yeah.
You have to
And
think
then
about it like that, yeah.
and then you see a Gallywix with AP Empire. It's like, my Light Fang didn't keep up kick weight. So you got to keep that in the back of your head, that if somebody pops off, I guess what happens, right, is there's power creep, is there are just so much more efficient ways of scaling. Like
Right.
Theo is a great example right now. So I think if you are in a Menagerie setup, you are trying to move into Theodore to make 3 killer units and then, fill in the blanks, like I said, later on with
Right.
Queen and Leroy. But there's also Dark Gaze, right? You could be playing Menagerie with, say, a ball of minions and a bonker, and then you triple into a Dark Gaze, and the Dark Gaze takes over because you have a lot more potential in the Dark Gaze than with the Light Fang, because you can add the Pumbaa for more gem generation. You can get a second Dark Gaze. You can gem transfer, which is also so much better than Light Fang, because if you have to get out of a Light Fang unit, the stats are gone, right? You're not getting anything out of that. If you have to get out of a Dark Gaze unit, you can transfer those gems first and then, sell the small unit and add the Leroy, the Selfless, whichever unit you have to replace it with. But the stats have been saved. So, Dark Gaze far superior. So I guess my point is that a lot of the time when you have Menagerie, you're either trying to upgrade it to a Theo, or you're trying to kind of move into something that's a little bit more towards one type. So like Bran, ball of minions, maybe 1 or 2 more Murlocs, and gradually Toxfin them, get a Dark Gaze, maybe you get Orgozoa, and then you just, once again, like ball of minions is really the connective tissue there, where that is your bridge between, you have your Menagerie and then you move into one other type. Like let's say the Orgozoa then gives you more Nagas, and then suddenly you're playing like Wranglers and you go into a Cleave comp. That happens all the time for me. I start out Menagerie-esque. I have my Light Fang and my Hydra, and then I get like 2 Wranglers and stuff, and I'm like, all right, fuck this. I'm just buffing the Cleave, right? Because again, same concept. I'm making 1 or 2 killer units, and I can much easier just fill my board later with other good units. Whereas if you're playing that Light Fang, you have just all mediocre units. And that, like, if you are trying to get 5, 6 good units at the same time instead of making 3 killer units, you're just going to be at a disadvantage because your stats aren't going to be large enough to contest the person that has the 3 killer units and then just supplements with Leroy and Queen later. So that's really what it comes down to, is like, try to condense your stats more, either through gems, through Wrangler, through Theo, whatever you have, and then add those good tech units, right? Like a blaster could be a great addition to your board. If you're not very Divine Shield heavy, you take out enemy Leroy's. We talk about Selfless Baron all the time. We talk about Queen Leroy all the time. But it could also be something silly like I'll just play like a naked module. Like let's say your opponent has 2 Deflectobots and you couldn't get a blaster. Naked module tanks 2 like 40 damage Divine Shields. That's good as well. So yeah, anyways, I'll leave it there because that's my little rant on the Monopoly. But it's hard to explain that. It's hard to say, oh, just go with the flow and then transition into something else.
So that would that be your main advice? Like, if you want to play Menagerie, right, and you have a Light Fang, just use the initial cards as a bridge to play something else better. If you're gonna stick to Menagerie, you like the units that you have, then Theo is usually the option. But if you're not using that, you can usually take 1 or 2 because normally you'll have like 1 or 2, like one good actual unit, either Cleave or it's a Divine Shield. Use that as your bridge to fully transition into that comp. Another nice thing is if you're running a ball of minions, right, that can always be an easy way to bridge things. So if you have good card, double ball of minions, very easy to be very flexible based on what you get and play around the ball more than the other cards you get. Something like that, or
yeah, and Ball of Minions in particular, if it's not a Murloc lobby, you have huge incentive to keep the pair and then triple and sell the triple because that's a huge amount of stats you'll gain. So that's another cool little thing about getting a Ball of Minions pair early. But no, I think you summarized it quite well where you use the tempo and then you're trying to look to get into some higher end scaling. So essentially, I'm just trying to get the point across that you shouldn't be taking temporary losses in tempo to build your ideal comp because whatever you have in mind with your Hydra, your Cyclone and stuff isn't what you're going to be playing anyway unless there's a Theo pumping because the Light Fang and the Bran are generally not going to get there.
That's very true. While we were talking, you made me think about another card that I wanted to discuss and I wanted to know your thoughts on it.
All right, let's throw it out there. Is it leader? All right.
No. it's not leader. No, that's a good callback. No, I want to tell you your thoughts on Hogger, right? Like, what goes through your head? Like, what do you think about it as a good balance fun? What's your thoughts on this?
Overall, it's still a fun card, but at high level, it's getting a little repetitive, a little boring. We're like, oh, they got Tony and Hogger. So I think that the main issue, if you were to say there's an issue, is Tony, where we talked about that back in the day where they made Tony from 5 to 4. And we're like, why? This was supposed to be the nuts, right? Yeah, this was supposed to be your extremely high risk investment where if this pays off, you win the money, you got the golden Hogger, things are amazing. But the amount of times I see people procking Hoggers with Tony against the Ghost and then they just go on to win the lobby, it's getting a little repetitive. And that's also just what happens when you have great players. They start to figure things out. And Hogger is just one of those cards that it's the preferred tool of the high level player because if you have infinite money, sure, right, yeah. I've been playing. I don't play a ton of Hogger myself. I don't really reconnect and all that. I'll play it when it's given, of course. But I see a lot of really high ranked players. They go through some extreme lengths to force.
They do.
Man, they absolutely do, man. They're like, I see them forcing that shit so often, and I mean, it makes sense because if you get it online, you win.
Yeah,
you have infinite money, so you can counter whatever your opponent throws at you, right? You can get the Golden Blaster Selfless, Golden Baron. You can have unlimited money to roll for White Man if you're against Baron comp. So you got your shit covered. Like you will win. Like sometimes you have a good setup and you're like, oh, I lost because someone else got Pirates, right? So APM Pirates is that only comp where you get it together. You're like, oh yeah, I win. Unless because if I lose, it's my fault, right? I did something wrong. Like,
that's why high level players love it. It's like if I lose, it's my fault. Legitimately,
exactly. That's always the case. If you get APM Pirates online, we're talking some very, very big exceptions here where let's say there is someone else playing APM Pirates and it's a Gallywix and they got on the line earlier and couldn't outscale it.
Yeah,
But
Gallywix is
especially,
like ruins things. Like Gallywix is like, no, they won. They won. It doesn't matter.
well, if you get APM Pirates online before them, you'll be bigger because you're both infinite anyway. It doesn't matter that they're Gallywix. Like once you're infinite, you're infinite. They don't have an advantage because they're Galley. But
what if they have
if the
cook
Galley,
or something?
yeah, of course. There are, so I did want to say there are some very small exceptions where you don't 100% win every time you get APM Pirates online, assuming that you play it perfectly. But especially if you use a reconnect button, which once again, the players that force this, they definitely use that reconnect button because, they're definitely going to want to be big enough, which I'm totally fine with, right? I used to reconnect a lot in the past. I don't do it anymore, really,
you sound
because
you sound like an addict.
yeah, I'm a recovering reconnector for sure. Yeah, I used to get out of that. One of the best feelings is you put like a Hogger and a Tony down with a Void Lord, and then you're just like, all right, I'm already reconnecting. Let's go, baby. That happens all the time. I see them do that as well, right? If I watch the stream, they just like play the Tony and the Hogger, boom, reconnect. Let's go. They just get started. But I don't really like it for the stream experience. It's more fun if people can watch the fights. and it's also great for tournaments, right? It's not a crutch. Like I can play APM Pirates in a tournament. It's the same experience. Like I can play APM Pirates on Asia and I'll be okay-ish with it. Whereas I bet that for people who reconnect and routinely make these like 1,000 salties or whatever, they're just getting super frustrated by playing on Asia. And like, I could have been so much bigger. It's like, I just need to be big enough to beat the next guy. It's fine. Anyways, that was a bit of a sidestep, little tangent. But the verdict for me is that Hogger is fun, and I think for most of the player base, it's a fine card where it actually brings sufficient risks. I see that all the time as well on Reddit. People with their like Hogger boards, and then they're like 6th or 5th, and like, oh my god. They just have to explain, like, yeah, if you have a bunch of pirates without Divine Shield, then yeah, you can die to poison. That is a thing. But at high level, I think it's a bit problematic, where it's too easy to get Golden Hogger with Tony. I guess I'll put it that way. And then you give a high-level player infinite money. It's so often that I look at it and it's like, okay, I can't play for first anymore. Like, I just don't even have the illusion of being able to play, unless my opponent's going to mess up where they're somehow not resistant to poison. But they pretty much always have the Golden Blaster, Golden Baron, Golden Selfless, and then that alone is already 18 AoE. So it was like going to kill any Mantid or Leroy you have. Yeah. Either way, I'm not sure that's what you were going for, but that's where I'm at on the card. Overall, not too big of a problem, but at high level, gets a little repetitive.
So Shady, I don't go in asking questions expecting a specific answer from you, Shady. Okay, let's just throw that out there.
Okay,
so your answer is your answer. And I'm just like,
but there's maybe something that prompted the question, right?
Oh yeah, because that's true. So I do hear a lot of people, specifically high level people, talk about like, ooh, these cards are problems, like, and enhanced mechanic, right? Or the enhancer quest is one of them. Hogger's another where I think a lot of people are like, this is just like annoying and frustrating, and like, oh, you get Hogger, it's too easy to proc, right? So I just kind of wanted to hear like your thoughts on it. Like, do you agree with that, or so like, yeah? And I searched. I was kind of lying. I kind of covered.
Kind of covered. I knew what you were gonna say. I had an idea, like for sure. It sounds weird because I don't want to be that old man Grinch, be like, this card is bad, this card is bad. The only card that's good is when I can play my Theodore and the rest is imbalanced, right? Because you do want to keep some flavor in, and I think Hogger is incredibly fun to play. I think there's a lot of players who just their sole purpose is okay, let me just try to get APM Pirates. I just want to have fun, so I don't want to take that away from them. I think the only problem is that the Tony just makes it too common, right? Like, you can have several games per day where you lose to an APM Pirate player at high level.
And when we were watching the like the Lobby Legends tournament, it was pretty much if Pirates were in this one, there was like that was it. Like, if Pirates are in this one, because it's just like that's the best way to play the game, and there's no like, what are you gonna do if I get it? Like, I win, right? So everyone's just forcing it, and the person who did get it ends up winning. And it's kind of funny, like, because like, some people had like no business winning. Like they were like 2 HP, like, and then they got it, and then they won, and I was just like, okay.
Yeah, if you are mechanically skilled enough, which pretty much every player at high MMR is,
Right.
you can turn a Hogger board in 2 turns, right? Like you can go from complete ass, like just garbage
Yeah.
board into, oh, this is the best board in the lobby now.
Yeah.
2 turns, that's all. Like 1 turn with reconnecting, but we're playing tournaments, right? So
Right.
like let's say 2 turns. 2 turns is all you need. You turn a board that's
It,
the worst in the lobby to the best in the lobby, and that should probably not be possible, right?
honestly, there were some aspects of it was a little bit frustrating because the European players also did this, but they couldn't win, right? Because they were slower than the Asian players with the same board setup, just because like
Yeah.
of the lag. So it's just like there was a lag advantage. Like, oh, only the Asian players could actually run it fast enough in 2 turns to transition to the win. So I was just
Well,
like, they lost because.
I will say that we have seen this though with Asia Pacific players playing on an A, playing on a U,
Mhm.
and still
And still
pulling it
being
off.
faster. I see what you're saying.
So, well, not being faster, but being fast enough that you're not dying, right? And as
Ah,
long as you're not dying with the Auger, you'll get there. So, I think we're talking specific encounters where you're either fighting a counter APMer or someone with Dark Gaze or something
yeah,
is also pumping. So, I obviously I hear what you're saying, and it is a thing. It can't be
yeah.
denied that if you're playing on your home server, you have an advantage if you're
Hmm.
playing Hog
Yeah,
because you're just smaller.
yeah.
Like, yeah, neither of you is finishing your turn, but the one is getting more actions in than the other.
Dude,
So if
we
you're
were
going
we
up,
were
yeah,
watching one player. The spectator couldn't keep up. The
yeah.
spectator was like 2 minutes behind. It was just like, what is going on? They couldn't show him anymore because he was just like still in the fight, still doing the
Yeah,
action. So I was
no,
just like, okay.
that definitely happens, and especially if you're, say, spectating someone on ladder and they're reconnecting. I have a game where I was watching Shuvalord, right? So
Hmm.
he loves Force. Like that's one of the players. Like half the games I fight him, he's patches. I swear to God, the guy just lives for forcing Augur. And the I was spectating him one time, and then I went from the end of his game into turn 4 of the next game. That's how far there was a buff blagger behind. But I went straight into turn fucking 4 of the next game. It was insane. Like, yeah. So that should tell you about fights and animations and spectator mode being slower, etc. But that's hilarious. Anyways, yeah, that's the Hogger take. So yeah, I do want to be careful to not be that person that just is like, oh, this
You don't
card is
want to
bad.
be blamed for killing Hogger. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. I don't want to be like, well, I guess I have Shady to thank for this. It can't APM anymore. Just tone down the Tony, right? So that the access to golden, because we were playing APM Pirates still without Tony.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
happened,
yeah.
but it felt more natural. Where like, okay, I got a Hogger, I got a
We
second Hogger.
we did
Okay,
have Hamul then. I will say
that is
we
true,
did
but
have
a lot of the
Hamul.
time you were doing this on 5 anyway.
True.
But yeah, Hamul a lot of the time gave you the second Hogger or
Yeah,
the Hogger and then the full pirate shop. So that is true. But even pre-Hamul, right? Like as long as Hogger has existed, we've done APM
yeah,
pirates.
that's fair.
Yeah, it's just now with Tony, it's extremely common compared
Hmm.
to what it used to be. And
Hmm.
I do think that it should be a build that's reserved for like, it's a
I got
Hogger game.
lucky. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I
I got
agree.
lucky. It's a
Yeah,
Hogger game.
yeah.
Like, I don't think this should be the norm. I don't think it should be like going into a game like, all right, I'll try to force Hogger.
So
Or sure, you
I,
can have that mentality like I'll buy every Hogger I see, which is fair, but not just like, oh, I'll buy a Hogger or Tony. Boom, here you go.
I did have this role. I wasn't gonna play. I wasn't. I had no intention of playing pirates, but I rolled double Hogger, double Peggy, and I was just like, I guess I have
I
to
guess. Oh
take
God.
it. It
Yeah, if you
was
said that, that would have been so. Like I would have, like a lot of players would have cringed at that. Be like, oh, I can't believe it.
yeah, I mean, it was an easy win, right? But I was
Yeah, yeah,
just,
of course, of course.
I was, I was just
That's
like,
perfect because you're also generating stats from the get go.
yeah, it was too strong. I was like, I guess I have to win. I guess I have to win now. Sit
I
up
guess I
straight.
have to win now. Yeah.
Yeah. But that kind of thing is always, it's always like that. Those are the type of moments where you're like, okay, I guess Bob was being very nice to him. It shouldn't be like, oh, he rode Peggy Tony or Hogger Tony. I guess he wins now. Like, yeah, that's the only requirement. It's a bit too much. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. There's always these things. And then the last thing, though, we don't really have a topic for is just like the feel, how you feel of this like holiday lull or so, because they do this. Like I think they get breaks during the December season, which is fair. Like I'm not blaming them, but for the player base, right? It has to be said. Um, the player base is used to getting patches every 2 weeks, where there is some change, and then during this season you'll go a month, or so. Like it's been, I think it's been more than a month since we had like the big patch. We did have the enhancer change, but you did mention like that could have already been pre-planned, just like to
Yeah.
delay it, right? So like I would say like it's been more than a month where you've had like, oh, this is like a big change or so, and you always have like people complaining, right? People, they'll be like, oh, dude, they're it's died, you're not doing anything. What's your thoughts on like just like having no changes for like an extended period of time, because they do this regularly?
I personally, right, I don't mind that
Right.
because it also gives me a little bit of time to chill.
Okay.
Whereas let's say that this was a Lobby Legends qualifying period, and
Mm-hmm.
let's say that there's a new-ish meta to learn, I
Mm-hmm.
would feel that pressure to just go hard.
Mm-hmm.
So from a from a completely selfish point of view,
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind that rhythm at all, but I can
Okay.
absolutely understand that for more casual players who just want to have content and say like, okay, I've seen it, I've seen this meta,
Right.
I want to play
Mm.
something new. This is not my career, right? Whatever. Then yeah, that is annoying where you're like, okay, I've seen it, I want something else. And
Right.
also from a pure content creator point of view, if you are wanting to go hard and stream a lot and do everything, then yeah, it would also be better to have more frequent changes because there's a little bit more motivation intrinsically, I guess, to learn something new. And then it's also I guess better for viewership. But I do think that a lot of people that watch, they kind of just want to watch the streamer play BGs, and it's not like too bad if it's a similar meta. I think
Mm.
it's mostly for the players. I think for the viewers, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, I mean, but the player base is like it is pretty important, right? Like,
Absolutely, yeah. No, I do think that from almost every player, right? Because we bring ourselves up as examples
mhm,
because that's our experience, but we are not the the target audience here. We are not
no,
the players that matter when it comes to the scale of things. Yeah, and then for those players, I think that that's not a great time to go through because you might just get a little burnt out on the game, and then that's where players go to different games. And whether they come back or not, we don't know.
yeah, I guess so. You definitely have to see. My experience. Well, I mean, is it even fair? Like, I've been playing different games.
You have not. Yeah, you don't have an experience this month, I guess.
I guess I can't even talk about it too much. But if there were changes, maybe no. Like the main draw is Lobby Legends, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
think it matters what the change would be. I'd probably be in the same feeling of like, there's no Lobby Legends, so I don't care as much, even if
Which
they.
which is exactly the thing I wanted to also bring up, where that doesn't matter for, once again, like 99 points, whatever percent
Right,
of the player
right,
base. They
right.
don't care if it's a Lobby Legends month or not. So we shouldn't even use that, right, when we're talking about this.
Yeah,
Um
right. I'm talking about my experience, so I
Absolutely.
I guess it doesn't. It's not relevant. I agree with you. Like, most players, like, they care about new content, right? They're not thinking, is it a Lobby Legends month? I guess I'm not playing. Like, they're not having that thought process. So I see what you're saying. It's more like, oh, is there new content for me to enjoy? That kind of thing. Um, and you know it's definitely hard to put out new content every month, that's balanced and feels fun and feels like not rushed per se. So and definitely this, if you're gonna have a lull, this is the time, right? Like the December month, I guess, where
yeah.
things wind down. So
Again, from a purely selfish point, I like it. I like
mhm,
the chill moments where, like, this is what this like a stupid thing, right? But I
mhm,
enjoy, like, I usually have a pretty strict schedule where I'm like,
mhm,
okay, I'm going to optimize because I like being at my best. So I'm going to get up at the same time. I'm going to eat the foods that I know are going to make me sharp and all that. And it's nice to be able to be like, you know what? I'm gonna eat some shit that's gonna make my brain slow, and I'm not gonna be in trouble for that. Where I'm like, it's a Lobby Legend qualification mod, and now I lost a day or so because I couldn't play properly and had to play on Smurf or whatever. So
Right.
shit like that, where people might enjoy some alcohol, etc., and it also is probably not so conducive if you're trying to qualify and you're hungover, etc. So yeah, again, from a purely selfish point of view, and for other competitors, it's probably nice to have this break where
Okay.
you're not just on the whole year. But yeah, for your average player, it doesn't matter.
I feel that. I feel that, Shady. All right, sounds good to me. I think we've covered everything I wanted to talk about, which was nothing, but we covered everything else. So, sounds good. Thank you guys for joining us here. Thank you guys for sending us feedback. You can find us on Twitch, Twitter, if it still exists, that kind of thing. And I will be playing afterwards, so I guess you can stick around if you want. And any final words for you, Shady? That kind of thing.
Good to be back. I guess good to be back.
Were you not back? What does that
We
mean?
were gone for a week, so we're back.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you mean you're like the podcast is back. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to empathize with the viewers who are waiting. Right? It was like, oh, where's my weekly podcast? Right? And then we're back now. So here we are.
All right, take care. Da-da-da. We'll see you guys later. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy holidays, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next week, unless we're not here. But then Shay will be mad at me, so I guess I'll see you.
We'll make it happen. Yeah.
All right.